Hi there, welcome to Ceevaluations. I'm so glad you took time out of your day to be here. Today we're going to be concluding our breakdown and review on Abi Dare's international best-selling novel, The Girl with the Louding Voice, which follows our main protagonist Aduni, a 14-year-old girl forced into marriage in her village in Ikati, until various occurrences subsequently forced her to flee from her old life. Now, the last time we saw Aduni, she started English lessons with a nice lady called Miss Tia, while subsequently trying to flee from Big Daddy's advances and find out the secrets about the former housekeeper, Rebecca. Will the mystery finally be revealed? Will Aduni be able to finally get her education? As I said in the last video, this book contains themes such as child labor and exploitation, gender-based violence, domestic violence, child marriage, sexual assaults, and physical and emotional abuse. So please be aware. I also do want to put out a disclaimer that this is not a spoiler-free review. We will be discussing key plot points and character arcs in every chapter. So if you're yet to read the book and you'd like to go in blind, feel free to save this video for later and come back to it. And if you haven't seen the first or the second video about this lovely book, please start there. Trust me, you'll understand the story so much more. Alright, without further ado, let us finally conclude The Girl with the Louding Voice by Abi Dare. In chapter 37, we see the aftermath of Big Daddy and Big Madam's fight. In chapter 37, we see the aftermath of Big Madam and Big Daddy's fight. Miss Tia and her gynecologist husband visit the house, and Miss Tia is trying to convince Big Madam to let her take Aduni to the market so she can help her haggle. Big Madam sits across from them, her face caked in makeup to mask the bruising. Chapter 38's fact is that many Nigerians have superstitious beliefs about pregnancy, like attaching a safety pin to ward off evil spirits. Big Madam brings up the topic of kids and tells Miss Tia that exact superstition, saying that her womb will expire if she doesn't get pregnant soon. Big Madam isn't very open to the idea of Miss Tia spending time with Aduni, but for some reason, Big Daddy jumps in to say that it would be a good idea for Aduni to help out Miss Tia one evening a week. Florence, Big Madam, obviously doesn't approve, but she isn't going to go against her husband in front of guests. So she just tells Aduni to go fill up the pitcher as she and Miss Tia share a secret smile together. That night in chapter 39, though, we see that Big Daddy did not do it out of the kindness of his heart. Because that night, Aduni catches him on the phone with someone who he calls Baby Love. And we'll find out who Baby Love is later, and I promise you guys will be shocked. He forces her to thank him and then berates her when she tells him that all she wants from him is to find Mr. Kola so that she can receive her pay. She walks away as he tries whispering for her to come back without waking Big Madam. And Aduni thinks to herself how, despite Big Daddy being literate, there really is no difference between him and Morufu. They both suffer from the same sickness, a sickness with no cure. Chapter 40's fact is that as of 2012, Nigeria was estimated to have lost over $400 billion of oil revenue to corruption since independence. It's election season, and we know that Kofi is Team Buhari. However, Big Madam is very much not. She is ranting about how he will finish this country for good as Aduni massages her feet. When Miss Tia comes to the house to try and take Aduni to the market, Big Madam says no, telling her to come back on Monday and to find her own housemaid because she's not a housemaid charity. On Monday, she returns and they both head down the streets to Miss Tia's house, which is much less flashy than Big Madam's. Miss Tia says she's excited about her outing because she wants to get her mind off things. What things? Well, she still hasn't been able to get pregnant, and her mother-in-law has been hounding her about going to a prophet to take a special bath. Miss Tia is hesitant, but Aduni encourages her to try the pregnancy bath because pregnancy baths are very normal in Ikati village, and that she can go with her to help calm her fear. This decision will have grave consequences in later chapters, however. Chapter 41's fact is that some of the earliest art sculptures in the world originated from Nigeria. The bronze head from Ife, which is one of the most renowned, was taken to the British Museum a year after it was discovered in 1938. We see the inside of Miss Tia's house adorned with various sculptures and paintings, simple furniture, no TV or electronics, a home that actually feels like a home. She tells Aduni she has a surprise for her and brings out a few English language books as well as a small Nokia phone so that they can stay in contact without Big Madam's knowledge. Aduni is so happy that she could cry. I mean, her, a small girl from Ikati village owning a mobile telephone. And this chapter really got me teary-eyed because it's very obvious that Miss Tia cares so much for Aduni and her education. She's so supportive of Aduni's goals of educating herself and becoming a teacher, building her own school in Ikati and teaching the next generation of young girls. She tells Aduni that everything she needs to be great, God has already put inside her heart. She tells her to never ever let go of her belief in herself, that she needs to remind herself that tomorrow will be better than today, and that she's a person of value and she is important, and to never ever forget that. After that very sweet scene, they head to the market together. Messiah helps her navigate the hustle and bustle, and Aduni helps her haggle prices for different provisions. 2 hours later, after they're done in the market, they are sitting in a booth at a fast food place. Messiah asks Aduni if there's any progress on her essay, but before she can answer, Titi Benson, one of the other women from the WRWA meeting, enter. Messiah knows that if they're seen together, the information will get back to Big Madam, so she tells Aduni to duck under the table until she leaves. The women do leave eventually, but by then Aduni's food has gone cold. That evening though, Aduni sits in her room and thinks about what Miss Tia told her today. Write your truth. Your truth. And so she does. She writes about Murufu and what he did to her. She writes about her parents, her brothers, about Khadija and what happened to make her run away from her village. She pours her entire heart into the essay, and although it is not perfect, it is hers. Her story. This true story essay of myself by Aduni, the girl with the louding voice. And first thing in the morning, before anyone is awake and before she can psych herself out of it, she runs to Miss Tia's house and slides the folded essay under her gate. Chapter 42's fact is that Muhammadu Buhari was the head of state of Nigeria from 1983 to 1985. In 1984, he enacted the War Against Indiscipline, a rule remembered for human rights abuses and restrictions of press freedom. Aduni spends her Christmas alone in the house, cleaning, washing, and reading books when she has the chance. She feels nostalgic about Christmas in her village in Ikati. On the first working day of 2015, Big Madam tells Aduni to follow her to her shop in town. Aduni tries listening in on the conversation she's having on the phone with Caroline Bankole about how Buhari's presidency will cause her customers to leave the country, but Big Madam catches her and gives her a knock on the side of her head, telling her to mind her business. They get to the shop and we get to see the businesswoman side of Big Madam. She's very manipulative, manipulating Caroline into buying excess fabric for a dress she's making for a special somebody. She tells Aduni to go to her car downstairs to get the money, and when Aduni goes down, she sees Caroline's housemaid. But compared to Aduni's disheveled look, the girl looks like she could be Caroline's daughter. She's talking on the phone freely while eating jollof rice and fried meat in the car. She offers Aduni the rice, stating that Rebecca was always hungry. And Aduni is shocked. How does she know Rebecca? The girl, Chisom, tells Aduni that Rebecca would come to the shop with Big Madam every day until one day she stopped coming. Around the same time, her skinny frame was starting to get a bit big. Aduni tries coercing more information about Rebecca, but Big Madam shouts at her to bring the bag upstairs or else, so Aduni runs away, the conversation sparking more questions than answers. In the car though, as Abu is driving them home, we see another side of Big Madam. Aduni is gushing about how large and lovely her shop is and how her children must be so proud. And Big Madam actually laughs and smiles at Aduni. Aduni tells her that she wants to be just like her, and she tells Aduni that if she does want to be like her, she must work very hard, rise above whatever life throws at her, and to never ever give up on her dreams. They nod, making eye contact, and for a moment, just a slight moment, something warm forms between them. But just like a switch flipped, Big Madam goes back to her normal character when they get home, causing Aduni to run back inside the house, hiding a small smile. Chapter 43's fact is that Nigeria has the largest Christian population in Africa. A single church service can record a congregation of over 200,000 people. Buhari wins the elections. Kofi celebrates. Big Madam wallows. They go for Easter service. Big Daddy continuing to berate Big Madam even though she's the one giving him money for church offerings, making her almost cry in the car. Aduni can't follow them inside the main church, instead going to the housemaid service out back. The elitism is insane in church of all places. But she sees Chisom and she asks her why her madam is so nice to her. Chisom tells her that she knows secrets about her madam that makes them as close as sisters. What are those secrets, you ask? We'll find out. Aduni asks more questions about Rebecca. Chisom tells her that she told her she was getting married and was happy yet afraid. But before Aduni could ask more, the pastor starts the sermon, and after church, she doesn't see Chisom again. When they get back home, Aduni stays in the car crying silently at her situation and the many unanswered questions. Abu consoles her though and tells her that Rebecca left a note before her disappearance, promising to bring it to her room that evening. Chapter 44's fact is that the Yoruba ethnic group considers twins to be a powerful supernatural blessing, believing to usher in great wealth and protection from the families that they are born in. Aduni and Miss Tia follow Miss Tia's mother-in-law to the prophets for the special bath, and it's very obvious that Miss Tia's mother-in-law doesn't like her and just tolerates her due to her son. They get to the church, and Messiah has to change into a scarf and change from her garment of sorrow and barrenness into a new garment. They get to the church, and she kneels as the prophet bounces around her, ringing his bells and spreading his arms like an eagle. And after the chanting is done, do they then begin the bath? The bath happens in chapter 45, and it is very, very traumatizing. The bath is absolutely brutal. The women take Messiah to a dark cave with a river flowing through the middle. They surround her, they strip her naked, and they whip her with 4 long brooms tied with a red thread. They whip her collectively as she screams and tries to fight them off. Aduni cannot move. She and the mother-in-law are frozen in fear. The women hold her down, covering her mouth to stop the screaming, and tie her wrists and legs with rope. They continue whipping Miss Tia until her skin turns red. And in chapter 46, Miss Tia is bleeding on the floor as the women declare the evil of childlessness has been chased out. She's no longer kicking and screaming. Her entire body is full of marks. The mother-in-law tries telling Aduni that she didn't know this is what the bath would be, but Aduni isn't hearing any of it and goes to the car quickly to fetch the change of clothes. In chapter 47, they drive home silenced. The mother-in-law trying to apologize and make small talk with Miss Tia, but Miss Tia just keeps her eyes on the window, her fingers curled so tight that the skin nearly splits. Aduni gets back to Big Madame's compound, Coffee telling her that Madame went to the hospital because her sister got into an accident, but Aduni is despondent. Even as Kofi tries asking her what's wrong, he sees the look in her eyes and he just solemnly tells her to go to bed. Aduni goes back to Miss Tia's house in chapter 48, and it is revealed that the prophets and the bath and the beating were all for nothing. Why? Because Miss Tia's husband, Dr. Ted, is infertile and therefore cannot get her pregnant. His mother doesn't know, and he didn't bother telling Miss Tia because when they first met, she didn't want children, and he refused to say anything after that, fearing that she would leave if she found out the truth. Miss Tia lets out a dry laugh and tells Aduni that she has made up her mind. If she gets accepted into the scholarship, fine. But if she doesn't, she's not going to let Big Madame's abuse continue any longer. She vows to save Aduni from that house, no matter what it takes, and the thought of someone fighting for her brings tears of gratitude to Aduni's eyes. Chapter 49 starts with the fact that despite the creation in 2003 of the National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons to tackle human trafficking and related crimes, a 2006 UNICEF report shows that approximately 1.5 million children under the age of 14, mostly girls, were working across Nigeria. Now, this chapter, Aduni is in a better mood than yesterday, and she tells Kofi that although the Slavery Abolition Act was signed in 1833, there are still invisible chains, and she's going to make it her life's mission to change that, to stop slave trading of the mind and the body. Kofi looks at her with a sense of pride in his eyes and tells her that one day she might just be part of history, but Aduni says no, not history. Her story. The story of Aduni. In chapter 50, Abu knocks on Aduni's door that evening and delivers Rebecca's note. He said that he found it in the car a day after her disappearance, and it was actually Big Daddy that was the one that instructed him to wash and clean the car thoroughly. And as he was washing, he saw something wet and a bit brownish, looking like blood. And then he found the letter stuffed between the two front seats, as if she was trying to hide it so that nobody would see it. Aduni reads the letter with shaking hands, and this is what it says. My name is Rebecca. I am a housemaid of Chief and Florence Adeosi, which we are calling Big Madam and Big Daddy. I'm pregnant for Big Daddy. Big Daddy forced me to sleep with him at first, and then he promised to marry me if I am sleeping with him all the time. Sometimes when Big Madam is at home, Big Daddy will put sleeping medicine inside Big Madam's cup of juice at night, so she will sleep when he's coming to my room. When I found myself pregnant, Big Daddy was very happy. He said he will marry me and that me and Big Madam will be his two wives and live in this house together. Since he told me, I have been so happy. This morning, he said we are going to the hospital to see the doctor. But I want to write this letter because after eating the food Big Daddy bought for me, my stomach has been paining me. And I am somehow afraid that Big Madam will be angry about, and then the letter ends. She wasn't able to finish it. Something or someone pulling her away before she had the chance. Aduni is unfolding and folding the paper, trying to see if there's anything that she missed. And as she's trying to do that, she hears something from outside her door. Well, actually, she doesn't hear it at first until she hears it again, like someone trying to turn her door handle and open the door. She used the wardrobe to block the door at night because obviously Big Daddy's advances. But then it budges and the door opens, and so she tries to hide under her bed. As she's hiding under the bed, Big Daddy barges into the room, obviously drunk, looking for her and telling her that he knows that she's here and he will find her. The bed creaks and hisses as Big Daddy goes on top trying to look for her everywhere. Before you know it, his body is on the bed, crushing her, causing her to let out a cry, causing him to find her under the bed. They wrestle and tussle and scream and shout. Aduni is screaming and shouting, begging him to not do this, but he's obviously not in his right senses. Aduni is pinned down under him and she feels like there's no way out. She honestly almost starts to give up until she remembers Miss Tia's words. Remembers that she told her to fight and to do everything in her power to get away if he ever tries anything like this with her again. And so she does. She tries fighting, she tries screaming, and she finally bites his hand, causing him to try and punch her. But before he's able to, Big Madame barges into the room, door bursting open. She's dazed. She looks like she's seen a ghost. She's staring at really nothing. And then she lets out a humongous cry. She cries out. She's like, Chief, Caroline, Caroline, baby love, Caroline of all people. It is revealed that baby love, the lady that Chief has been sneaking off in the night to talk to on the phone, is in fact Caroline Bankole, Big Madame's best friend. Best and only friend, really, which is insane. It's insane. Like, of all the people that he could have slept with, he slept with her best friend. It's very obvious that Big Daddy does not care for Big Madame at all, in any way, shape, or form. He's honestly really only with her because of the money that she provides for him. So in chapter 51, after Big Daddy runs away from Aduni's room and Big Madame finds out about who he's been seeing behind her back, Aduni goes into the living room to find Big Madame on the sofa, her wig right next to her, staring at nothing. She tries telling Big Madame about the letter that Rebecca wrote. Big Madame tells her to bring it. She skims through it and then just throws it on the floor. She just starts lamenting about how Chief has killed her. Chief has ruined her. Out of all the people that he could have slept with, he decided to do this, and for this he cannot go unpunished. She sends Aduni out of the room and Aduni leaves, plucking the letter from the floor and scurrying away. Chapter 52's fact is that about 30% of businesses registered in Nigeria are owned by women. The continued growth of these businesses, which is critical to sustaining the economy, is largely hindered by limited access to funds and by gender discrimination. Aduni goes to Kofi asking him more questions about Rebecca, like, was she educated? Did she go to school? And how was her English proficiency? Kofi says that, yes, she spoke English well, but she was very naive for her age. Aduni thinks that even Rebecca, someone that is educated, someone that has the English proficiency that she so desperately wants, was still able to be bamboozled by Big Daddy, thinking that she could marry him and live in his house. Not even his house, live in Big Madame's house with her and him is crazy. It just goes to show that formal education isn't the end all and be all of common sense. She had the education, but she didn't have the common sense. After that, later in the evening, Big Madame calls Aduni into her room and tells her that actually the reason why she went to her room that night was not because she thought Big Daddy was doing anything. It was actually because Miss Tia called her earlier that day and basically threatened her, telling her that she was going to come and take Aduni because she wasn't sure of her future in this house. Big Madame starts verbally abusing her, saying, what dirty future do you have in this house? How dare you let someone like Tia Dada come and talk to me in any manner, any form, any which way? Big Madame asks Aduni if she knows what Tia Dada wants to discuss with her. Aduni says no. She asks Aduni if Miss Tia were to take her away from here, would she go with her? And Aduni nods yes. Big Madam asks, is it because of what Chief did? And that's basically when Aduni's mouth just pours out like a tap. She basically confesses everything. She says that since she came to this house, she hasn't been happy. Not even just because of Big Madam and her beatings or Big Daddy and how he's trying to pursue her, but just because she feels like she has no future in these four walls of this compound. She feels like if she stays here any longer, that her life is just going to go to ruins, and she's not going to allow that. And Miss Tia isn't going to allow that either. Aduni tells Big Madam she also deserves better. Aduni tells her that she should find someone better. She shouldn't be with Big Daddy. He beats her nearly every single day. He fills her with so much hatred and sadness that when she sees her or Coffee, she pours all that hatred and sadness onto them instead of working it within herself. Big Madam is not hearing any of this. She just tells Aduni to get out of her room. In chapter 53, we find out that Big Madam has sent Big Daddy packing out of the house. Yes, he's not allowed to enter the compound. Mr. Abu is not allowed to give him any of the car keys for the house. Coffee is not allowed to let him even step foot into the gate. So that night, they fall asleep listening to Big Daddy's tears and apologies, saying that, oh, it won't happen again, just open the gates. And it goes from tears and apologies to anger, saying that, do you know who I am? Is this not my house? Open these gates. Until finally he gives up and goes back to wherever he's staying at the moment. That evening, Big Madam calls Aduni back into the room to massage her feet and scratch her head as usual. But she's on the phone with her sister, Kemi, and Aduni learns more about Big Madam and Big Daddy's life. She learns that Big Madam has basically been funding Big Daddy's life since he lost his job. She didn't want to say anything, obviously, because it's her husband. And in Nigeria, even though you are a successful woman with your own business and your children and everything, you really are nothing if you are not somebody's wife. She doesn't want to ruin that whole illusion of being the chief's wife, Big Daddy's wife, even though he doesn't do anything for her anyway. She says that Big Daddy's people are going to come to the house tomorrow, obviously to try and beg for Big Madam to let him back into the house. Big Madam professes suddenly that she's going to get Big Daddy arrested, that he will be arrested for Rebecca's disappearance, and she will make sure that he rots in jail unless he can produce that girl. She then tells Aduni to bring back the letter that Rebecca wrote tomorrow when the police arrive at the house. The chapter ends with Aduni singing Big Madam to sleep, her finally being able to get a semblance of peace after her world has basically been turned upside down. Chapter 54's fact is that a 2003 study of over 65 countries suggested that the happiest and most optimistic people in the world live in Nigeria. In chapter 54, Aduni is restless. She knows that she will have to produce the letter for Big Madam once the police and chief's people arrive, but she isn't sure when. So she's just in the backyard with Kofi sweeping until Kofi calls her from the kitchen. They stand in the kitchen and look through the glass, seeing Big Madam, the police officer, Big Daddy's people, and Big Daddy on his knees begging for forgiveness. Now, she tells the police that Big Daddy is responsible for Rebecca's disappearance, although the police tell her that she needs concrete and solid evidence to even accuse him of such. And so Aduni thinks, okay, yes, now is the time for her to come out and bring the letter. She just has to wait for Big Madam to give her the signal. But Big Madam doesn't give her the signal. And I feel like that is because of what was said in chapter 52 about how 30% of businesses registered are owned by women. But then because of gender discrimination, there's still a long way to go basically for women in Nigeria. I think in some way, Big Madam understands that she can't exactly put Big Daddy in jail because then she will be the wife of Big Daddy who is in jail. And that would just tarnish her reputation as well as his. And so she doesn't call Aduni out to bring the letter. Instead, she tells the police officer that she's sorry for wasting his time and that this is a private matter that they will have to just resolve privately as a family. She turns to Big Daddy and she tells him that she never wants to see him in her house ever again, and that Abu will pack his things and he will have to get them from the gates, and he should not forget to give Abu back all the car keys as he is leaving. Aduni is panicking. She's asking herself why Big Madam wouldn't want to expose Big Daddy. Why is it that she knows that he's responsible for Rebecca's disappearance, yet she doesn't let him face the consequences of his actions? Coffee drags her out of the kitchen as she tries her best to barge into the living room, but it's no use. After that, Aduni is in the backyard and she's crying silently, but Coffee comes to comfort her, telling her that she should have known that there was no way that Big Madam was going to just let her husband go to jail. He tells her that Big Madam is asking for her in the living room, and as she wipes her tears, she looks at the phone, seeing a text from Miss Sia telling her that she got accepted into the scholarship and that she is coming to the house right now to talk to Big Madam. She's very happy, very, very happy, but at the same time, she still wants to know what exactly happened to Rebecca. And so in chapter 55, she goes into the living room and sees Big Madam sitting on the sofa, and she finally confronts Big Madam and asks her point blank plainly what happened to Rebecca. Big Madam tells her that she doesn't have to answer to her. However, from the goodness of her heart, she will tell her exactly what happened. She says that the day that Rebecca disappeared, she was actually in the house, but Big Daddy nor Rebecca knew that she was around. And so when Big Daddy went to work, Big Madam went downstairs shouting Rebecca's name, and Rebecca did not answer. So she went out to the backyard, she went out to the boys' quarter to see what's happening, what's going on. And then she sees Rebecca on the floor in pain, grabbing her stomach, saying that, oh, Big Daddy gave her something to drink and now her stomach is upset. Big Madam found out that Rebecca was actually 4 months pregnant, drove her to the hospital, gave her transport fare, gave her a new phone, gave her some more money, and told her to just disappear. She doesn't think she went back to Agan village, because if she had gone back to Agan village, Mr. Kola would have told her. Big Madam told Rebecca to disappear, and she did. It wasn't Big Daddy. Well, it was Big Daddy, because he's the one that gave her the concoction that caused her miscarriage in a sense. So yeah, but then it was ultimately Big Madam who made her disappear, which is the reason why she could not pin it on Big Daddy when the police got involved, because she knew that at the end of the day it would still lead back to her. But after that, thankfully, after that whole revelation, Big Madam actually does let Aduni go with Miss Tia. Aduni runs to her room, packing up all her things, and before she leaves one memento behind the cupboard in the boys' quarter. She writes one sentence: Aduni and Rebecca, just to show that they were people, they mattered, they were important, and they were here. In chapter 56, after Aduni finds out that she did indeed get into the scholarship, she goes to Kofi to tell him the good news, and he's very, very happy for her, obviously. He knows that she will have to leave this house, but he tells her that he put his phone number in her phone so that she can call him anytime. Aduni asks him how he knew that she had a phone, and he tells her that he knew since the first day she wasn't exactly the best at hiding it. But he calls her Chale, and he tells her that he hopes that they can keep in touch. Before they go, Big Madam looks at Miss Tia and tells her to take care of Aduni, that she is a very smart girl and she served her well in her time here. She then turns to Aduni and tells her point blank that it would be better if she would mind her business in the future and face her life. Does she understand? Aduni looks at her with knowing eyes and tells her that yes, she does understand, and thanks her. Before her and Miss Tia walk away from the living room, they walk away from Big Madam's house and Big Madam's compound and Big Madam's hold over her life. And for the first time since she came to Lagos, Aduni breathes a sigh of relief, knowing that a new life is starting for her, knowing that she finally has a chance to pursue her education, to finish her goal of starting a school in her village, her dream of becoming a teacher, of having a school, of teaching the younger generation of girls what she wasn't able to be taught. And it's honestly just a happy ending. The story ends with Miss Tia taking Aduni's hand as they walk back to her house, telling her that indeed tomorrow will be better than today. That brings us to the end of The Girl with the Louding Voice by Abi Dare. I thoroughly enjoyed this book, but we are not done because we still have to look at the rules. What are the rules? Rule scale is a scale made by yours truly to systematically rate the books that we talk about on this channel. So rules, REWL, is basically R is readability, E is entertainment/enjoyment, W is writing style, and L is lessons learned. So let us start with R, readability. This book is very easy to read. I would definitely recommend this book to someone who isn't exactly an avid reader. You know, it may look big and it may look like a lot, 56 chapters, but honestly it's just like 300 pages or so. A very enjoyable read. I'd give it a 9 out of 10. It really wasn't bad. You can tell, like, obviously I said that Aduni has discrepancies here and there, and when you read the book you can see how much better her English gets, like in each chapter, especially after she meets Miss Tia and they start their English lessons. Her English improves drastically. So entertainment/enjoyment, this book was so entertaining, you guys. Like, there were so many mysteries. First it started with who got Khadija pregnant. We found out it was Bamidele. Then it went to, is Bamidele Babalao, because he just vanished into thin air. Then from Bamidele Babalao we now somehow get to Lagos and she has to become a house help for this Big Madam woman. And then we found out there was another house help called Rebecca who disappeared. Why did she disappear? It was just a lot. It's a very entertaining read. It's a very enjoyable read. Obviously there are horrible things that happen in this book to Aduni and to honestly most of the women in this book, and I feel like it was a really good read for Women's History Month because it really does show you that a lot of things as a woman, like especially as a woman in Nigeria, you can't really do, or they just won't let you be as a woman in Nigeria. It's very nice to read a story that has a happy ending about a girl that just wants an education, because that's really what Aduni wanted. She didn't want to get married. She didn't want to go to Lagos. She didn't want to become a house help. She just wanted to get an education and become a teacher and maybe buy a house and a car for her father. Like, that's really just it. So yeah, very enjoyable book. 10 out of 10. Like, I would recommend this book to everybody. Writing style. It's her first published novel. We talked about that in the first video. However, her writing style is very distinct. I feel like she's very good at details. She's very good at detailing what happens to Aduni when she gets married to Murufu. She's very good at suspense. You know, who was Khadija's baby daddy? Like, how did Rebecca disappear? How did we find out that baby love was actually Caroline Bankole? Do you know that thing is still, I don't think we actually talked about that enough. Your husband's mistress is your best friend. I know in Lagos that's like an everyday something, but to me it's very, very scary. Because what do you mean you're sleeping with my best friend? That's so scary. Sorry, I veered off. Her writing style is great. I would give her writing an 8.5, just because sometimes she tends to, I wouldn't say over explain, but she does give a lot of detail that, like, halfway through you already know what's happening, but then the detail is still there. But I think it's good for people that aren't exactly, like, maybe you may not be the most imaginative person. So obviously the book gives you everything that you need to know about the whole story. So yeah. And then finally, lessons learned. What did we learn? What did we learn? I feel like the main and the obvious lesson from this book, The Girl with the Louding Voice, is that nobody, absolutely nobody, can stop you from achieving your goal. As long as you work towards that goal every single day, every single minute, every single second, you are going to reach that goal. Aduni did not ever think that she would go to school. As soon as her mom died, her dreams of going to school died with her mom. She didn't think that she would survive Lagos. She didn't think that she would be able to run away from Ikati village. She didn't think any of this. She didn't even think that she would be able to meet someone like Miss Tia, but at the end of the day, she still prevailed. Why? Because she did not give up. She didn't lack hope. The main thing that Miss Tia told her at the end of the day, that she should always remember that tomorrow will be better than today. She is a person of value. She is a person that is important, and nobody can ever take what God has put in her heart. I really, really did enjoy this book, and I really, really enjoyed that lesson. That was a 10 out of 10 lesson. 9 plus 8, that's 37.5 out of 40, which is not bad. I think 93.7%. A plus plus. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much. Please read this book. Please read this book. Like, honestly, I'm begging you at this point to please read this book, because there are so many things that I didn't talk about that are, pertaining to this story, because obviously time and everything, I didn't want to bore you guys, and I also didn't want to spoil everything so that you can read the book for yourself. So please read this book. It's an amazing book. Thank you to Abi Dare for bringing this story into the spotlight. That fact about how 1.5 million children under the age of 14, especially women, are still being house helps and housemaids and housekeepers. It's insane. And I feel like it has actually increased, because that was in 2015. So it should have increased by now, which is very bad. So we need to bring more awareness to stories like this, honestly. And there's actually a sequel to this book. We'll probably do that later in this channel. Maybe not soon, because I don't have my hands on the physical copy, but as soon as I get it, then I will announce that we'll definitely have to do the sequel of this book, because it's honestly amazing. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to be here with me. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and also you can comment what other books you want me to do on this channel. I'm open to any and every genre. Yes, even romance, even though I don't like romance books. I really don't. I find them so boring. But for you guys, I will do it. I will do all the romance books. Just give me all your recommendations. I take every recommendation seriously. And although I think we have the first 5 episodes already. We have the books that we want to do. But after the first 5 episodes, I'm open to any other recommendations or suggestions that you guys have for book reviews. So yeah, again, thank you so much. Leave a like, leave a comment. Don't forget to subscribe. And I will see you guys in the next video with a brand new book right here on Ceevaluations. Bye! Yay!